Welcome back to another episode of Scoundrels, Inc. We're talking about The Bad Batch, episode 10, Retrieval. How do you feel about that, Sean?
We were having a whole other conversation, and you started the podcast.
That's true. I just go right in.
Is this the new thing? Are we going to talk about like football or politics, and you're just going to mid conversation start the podcast? Is this the new gimmick?
Yes.
Now that it's just you and I, guys, it's just Frank and I on the podcast now.
That's not true, but
that's not true. But today,
today it is. Today it is. With that said, on this following Monday, we're talking about the rise of Skywalker, and let me tell you something. You may have noticed a certain Brandon Hanna comports himself a certain way on this show. Let me tell you something. On the Rise of Skywalker art talk, on that one, you will be astounded at what Brandon Hanna shows up for that episode.
It is the most unhinged, most boisterous, and charismatic I have ever seen this man. And I'm here for it. Let me tell you.
It's a sight to behold.
It's this man is passionate about Rise of Skywalker, and I think no matter how you feel about the film, you need to see how he feels about it.
Yeah, so
because I don't think Frank even ever gave his opinion on the movie.
Not really. A little bit. I tried to get it in there when I could. That's what she said. Anyways, let's just get into it.
We've been real raunchy today.
Jeez.
Don't worry, we will not be raunchy today on the Bad Batch review.
Nah, it's a kid show.
Because it's a kid show. But hey, I really like this episode. Some of our other podcast co-hosts, Kevin, really don't like this episode.
Did not.
But Frank, I don't know how you feel about this episode.
I thought it was just fine as a follow-up episode to last week. I like that it kind of had a conclusion to last week, which was nice because that's what I wanted to see from the next episode, which we did get. And I do like how it tackles certain aspects of how the Empire is operating now, and how other powers, if you will, smaller powers, are kind of filling the void. Like they reference the Techno Union here, and how basically a mobster walks in, and it's very Jabba-esque in terms of just controlling a group of people for its own amusement and profit, I guess.
Yeah. So this is my. Look, I saw last week Kevin made us a sign that said filler episode. This episode is my favorite kind of filler episode. I like this episode a lot better than some non-filler episodes we've had in the past. It does a great job of exploring a segment of life in the galaxy that we will not see otherwise, right? I think whenever you have these quote-unquote filler episodes not covering the struggle of the Bad Batch against the Empire, or the Bad Batch against, I know Rampart's gone, but whatever, right? You need to show me something that I cannot get from Rebels or Clone Wars or another Star Wars medium, and this does such a great job of that. Star Wars is such a big damn galaxy, and that's the beauty of what we can do in animation and in serialized television that you can't get in other shows or books or whatever about Star Wars. So, I mean, I feel like we saw a legitimate plot line, a legitimate self-contained plot line around this mining colony, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I felt engrossed in that world. I always equate things to role-playing game plots, right? Like, if I was a dungeon master running that episode, I totally felt like I could have given players, hey, here's what's going on. I know what I need to build on for the NPCs. I feel like this world was built up, this world was developed, and I learned about it, and there's enough to go on that and run with it and let your imagination run wild as a fan and just go, wow, like I really see this as a fleshed out portion of the galaxy where, sometimes in Star Wars we don't get that.
Yeah.
Sometimes in Star Wars we get these snapshots of civilizations that, like, okay, I guess that sort of makes sense, but like, we talked about with Rise of Skywalker, right? Where do the Sith acolytes get all their food? I don't fucking know. This world had an economy, and it had a social structure, and it had a hierarchy, and it felt real. It felt fleshed out. There's a reason for all that stuff being there, linking back to the Confederacy. And I thought it was a great exploration of things for our characters. I thought Omega had great things to explore and learn.
She had a lot of agency in this episode.
Absolutely. And so much of this show is about Omega learning about the wider galaxy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because she's been so sheltered on Camino, and she's, for the first time, exploring that with the Bad Batch.
But I don't know. I wish, we joked before Kevin left, like, I was going to try to change his opinion on the episode. Kevin, hopefully you see this and you see what I'm talking about, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's furthering the plot line of the Empire, because spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you now, the Bad Batch don't defeat the Empire. So if they don't further that plot line, I don't give a shit. That's not what this show's about. This episode is not really a filler episode because the Bad Batch is about them adjusting to life after the war, right? That's what this show is exploring. It's exploring what happens to clone troopers when their purpose is no longer there, right? When they no longer have their purpose, what are they there for?
That kind of feeds into my theory that I talked about a few weeks ago about, Tag being a riot racer, Wrecker, making a life for himself on Kashyyyk. That's my theory. And, maybe this mining colony, maybe one, I don't know, not Omega, but or Hunter or whatever. Probably no one's gonna come to.
But yeah,
this mining colony.
It's all about them finding their place in the wider galaxy.
Yeah. The one thing I really did like a lot about this episode was Omega and how she's, as Benny says it too in the episode, like, wow, you're really one of them, and it points towards the. She has equal status in the group because, when Benny's like, well, you can't come because you don't look right, but she can, and we'll give her something else to wear, but she can come along, she'll fit in.
Well, all he did was give her his jacket.
Right. But see, like season 1, Hunter is like, you can't.
So that was what I was going to say was I love that moment when he says that because it shows Hunter has this kind of like hesitation where he's like, is this a good idea? And then he's like, keep your eye on him.
Yeah.
And to me, that was Hunter showing like, you've earned your trust and your place as an equal here. Like, hey, you're still the kid, right? That you still have a lot to learn, but she's now proven that she can go out on her own and just be fine.
Yeah. And that shows over these past couple of episodes, even stemming from the last episode where Hunter is talking to Tech, like, yeah, you need to talk to Omega about what's, how you're operating, how you're feeling, and how she's feeling, and so it shows an evolution of a Hunter in a not overt way, but it's these little things where you see him, not letting Omega, but accepting Omega wants to do these things and is capable of doing these things. And it really comes to a poignant part in this episode when near the end, when Omega's being held by, I forget was it Mako, or
it was Mucko, but it was spelt differently than it was pronounced.
Yeah. And she's like being held. Oh no, she's being held by like that one droid.
Yeah,
and she like literally is like, I'm gonna take the droid down with me, and trusting that Hunter or whoever else is gonna catch her in midair, and she was unfazed or scared. And Hunter, like, they were so simpatico, right?
Yeah,
just like
because she doesn't start doing that until she sees Hunter with the grapnel gun.
It's like here's what we do. We've been, this is what I do. This is what Hunter does. And we work together. I'm getting out of this situation as a team. And I thought it was just a really great moment for Omega and Hunter working together as a team, and how much trust not only does Omega have in Hunter, but Hunter in Omega. So I thought it was a really great point in this episode that I appreciated much more for their characters. And yeah, like these fillers, quote unquote fillers, I find, at least in the Bad Batch way, do inform a lot of character development. It happened last episode. It's happened a few episodes. Last one, this one. So I like what the Bad Batch is doing, what they're doing for the characters.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, it's filler. It doesn't, It's not furthering the greater plot, but it's furthering the characters, and that's what matters. And I'm hoping this is kind of something we talked about. I don't know if we talked about it off episode or whatever, but sometimes you'll show character development in one episode that doesn't carry over to the next episode. I'm hoping this carries over because it does seem like these characters are growing and learning from each other. So as long as that continues to carry over, that's all I care about.
Yeah, and I would like to think that this mining colony might be called upon in some form or fashion down the line, and they'll answer the call because the Bad Batch helped out this mining colony get rid of their mob boss and kind of leveled the playing field in a way for everyone that was there and not being shafted by this mob boss type of character, which seems to be running rampant in the galaxy because Bad Batch has run into a lot of like mob type of individuals, like the Riot Racing episode, the adversary of Sid.
You have to remember in the expanded universe and in other mediums, that's very much what we see during the reign of the Empire, because wherever the Empire is going to challenge anyone of legitimacy that tries to maintain power and control. But these criminal elements and these more seedy elements have a way of maintaining control without making it evident that they are challenging the Empire for control of even a small sliver of their pie, right? If the Empire knew these guys were out here and doing their thing, the Empire is either going to try to find a way to extort or control Mako, so long as it's not a legitimate government and, anything else, right? That's who rises to power in a vacuum. It's what you see in a lot of mediums, and I think it's great.
Yeah. Before we get into the questions, I want to ask your thoughts on, I don't know if you heard this about Mandalorian.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that,
Yeah.
I've got a Bad Batch question for you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, so we're about halfway through this, through Bad Batch.
Yes.
Okay. We're a little over.
Little over.
We're 2 episodes past the halfway point, I think. So do you feel like this show, the way we ended last season, we saw Wayland and I don't remember who went to Wayland. They took the Kaminoan.
Yeah. Right.
Did we see anyone else go to Wayland or just her?
I can't recall.
Okay, so they took whatever remains of the Kaminoan, Nala Se, I think. Yeah, I think they took Nala Se to because Lamasu Tanwi and Nala Se is the one that's specific to Clone Wars and Bad Batch. They took Nala Se to Wayland. Do you think we'll get a follow up on that in this season, or do you think that's just sowing the seeds for something somewhere else in the future of Star Wars?
I don't know. I would like to get a follow up within the Bad Batch, whether it's this season or I'm gonna assume there's gonna be a third season Bad Batch.
I think so.
So I hope it's dealt with within Bad Batch. That'd be nice. But if it ends up popping up in Mandalorian, Ahsoka, or whatever other series comes out, I'm not gonna be mad about that. But I just think because it started here in this series, I think it'd be nice if it came up again in this series.
Okay, so I want to pitch you something here. Well, first, do you feel let down that we haven't started to inch our way towards that yet?
No, I don't.
Okay. I want to pitch something for you here. We know that the live action shows are leading to sort of almost a Defenders style team up eventually, right?
Seems like it, yeah.
With probably Bo-Katan and Din Djarin and Ahsoka and Boba and whoever else, right?
Fennec, yeah.
What if Wrecker and Tech find their homes in the galaxy, but Hunter continues to gallivant around the galaxy, and we see Hunter and Omega join in on the fun, and that's where we see Wayland pop back up.
Definitely not opposed to that.
Cool.
I do like that idea.
It's just wild speculation I came up while sitting here.
I think that'd be very cool. Because I do like those characters. I especially like Omega.
Yeah. I think Omega and Hunter, like, as much as I like Tech and Wrecker, like, Omega and Hunter are almost the most...
Is it because they're the most transferable to live action?
They're the most transferable to live action.
Without it getting too wonky with like prosthetics and...
I think you could put tech in something else, but I don't think you could put tech in something else while keeping alongside Hunter.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And same issue with...
it would just be... Yeah.
It'd be hard.
Yeah,
it'd be hard. It might not be worth the effort.
It might not be. Yeah.
So, would it be cool? Would I like to see them? Yeah, sure. Great. I think tech is one that you can totally nail. Like you can, and even not even having Tamura do it even. Like you can have someone else play tech and then have Tamura play Hunter. And just like you can have Tamura play Echo, or not Echo. Echo, obviously. But Wrecker. I just worry about that if, you kind of need someone... You run into stature problems and stuff like that.
I don't have the brain power capacity to figure out how to do that the best way.
Especially considering you also have Boba in those episodes.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And potentially Rex and Boba. right?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't have the resources to try and figure out how to best do that. I'm not going to, and I don't get paid to do that, so I'm not going to try.
No. But we could get paid to do that.
Well, I would be, sure. I'd like to take a whack at it. The what? You paid me? I don't
All right, what was your question? You were asking me about Mandalorian.
Yeah, so I don't know if you had heard this, but
I haven't.
Apparently Jon Favreau has written season 4 of Mandalorian.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how does that make you feel about the series and where it may or may not end?
Doesn't change anything for me.
Okay. Because I was like, well...
I'm glad he has a plan.
Yeah.
But especially considering we've spent the rest of the evening talking about what happens when you don't have a plan. But yeah,
Monday.
I'm glad he has a plan, but it doesn't change anything. I think that aside from a few missteps, I think they've, for me, nailed the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I personally, I wasn't here for the episode you guys discussed it.
Yeah.
I personally wish that the events of Grogu and Luke's training had happened in The Mandalorian. I'm not of the opinion that, Grogu should have stayed separated for a whole season. No, just those 2 episodes that show up in Book of Boba Fett, put them at the beginning of Mandalorian. That's all. Like, I'd rather that have continuity with the rest of the series. Whereas, in 20 years, someone's going to pick up on The Mandalorian. And so that's that was I'd not to jump back to something you guys have already covered.
That's fine.
But
it's still relevant to talk about because next week is
The Mandalorian.
So
I think my biggest issue with that is we're looking at it you guys were looking at it from 2 people that are super engrossed in the internet culture around Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so you're tuned in and aware that you have to watch these 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett to understand next season of Mandalorian. Now they're probably going to put it on the pre-von.
That's what I think too.
But those 2 episodes are still 2 episodes of The Mandalorian that are in the middle of another series.
Well, the end of a series.
But they're not.
Yeah.
The last episode isn't that though, right?
But it ties into what happened in the previous.
I agree.
Yeah.
So then there's 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett.
It really is. It really is. And that's why it seems like Book of Boba Fett was almost an excuse to get 2 more episodes out of Mandalorian that they couldn't fit in the budget for a season 3 when they only have 8 episodes to do stuff.
In my opinion,
that's what it kind of seems.
In my opinion,
and I'm not mad about it.
I'm not mad about it either. Yeah. I'm thinking like, I always go to someone like my dad or my sister who big Star Wars fans, but they don't necessarily watch everything, and they don't necessarily watch everything in order of release, and they might get to something late or they might come back to something later. They're not going to necessarily know, hey, there's these 2 episodes that explain this whole chunk of what's going to happen in season 3. And I would actually like to end up talking about this later at the end of Mandalorian season 3 to see how much it affected it.
Because my whole argument about...
But also someone coming back to it in 10 years. These are going to exist on streaming forever.
We hope.
We hope. And it's not going to.
We hope. Never know.
It's not going to. There's not going to be a point in between Mandalorian season 2 and 3 where it says, "Hey, you should go watch Book of Boba Fett before coming back here." It's separate.
That's why I do hope, and I'll be kind of surprised if it's not in the pre-von.
Sure, I think it'll be in the pre-von, but you're still going to miss some element. Of that,
but
right?
it's like you'll hopefully, I don't know how they would convey it in the
know.
preview of like in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, it might say previous, because what you could do is put previously on the Book of Boba Fett or the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they go about that, if they go about it that way.
Because it is, I guarantee if you, like on Disney Plus, when you finish the series of something, it'll show you a recommended show.
Yes, yeah.
So my hope would be that when you finish The Mandalorian, it'll
Season 2?
No, just well, I don't think that I don't think the technology is set up to do that. Yeah, it'd be great that when you finish The Mandalorian Season 2, it says,
Book of Boba
go
Fett.
watch Book of Boba Fett. But I don't think that the technology is specific enough to do that. So my hope is
I wonder if it does that now, but then once Season 3 starts airing, Season 2 will point to Season 3.
So probably right now if you did it. Yeah. But what I'm saying is I hope that it does show to go watch the Book of Boba Fett and not like Andor or something else.
It would be
nice. Because
nice.
that is what you should watch after. Anyways, that's my digression.
I'll just say my reasoning for why I think those two and a half, if you will, episodes exist in Book of Boba Fett is because they only have 8 episodes for Season 3,
I get
and
it.
they didn't want to spend 2 of the 8 telling those stories when they had room in the Book of Boba Fett to tell those stories, and it ties into the finale of Book of Boba Fett, and that way when you get to Season 3, you're off to the races. They're ready together, and boom, we're full steam ahead.
My issue is the inciting incident for Season 3, the Din Djarin versus Paz Vizsla. That's the inciting incident for Season 3, and the drive, at least from what we've seen so far. That's I'm not even talking about the Grogu and Luke stuff.
Yeah.
I don't give a rat's ass about that. That's secondary.
Yeah, in terms of Mando's own particular storyline with the Darksaber.
Well, but it seems like that's the story of Season 3 is going to be the repercussions from that conflict.
But in that season or episode 6, I think it is, or no, 5 of Book of Boba Fett. Because there's only 7 in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
right. So Season 5 or Episode 5 of Book of Boba Fett, he fights Paz Vizsla for the Darksaber. He challenged.
Mm-hmm.
He enters that episode with the Darksaber. He leaves that episode with the Darksaber. So you're not really
but he
missing a huge part.
It's the discussion with the armor about
there is that though. You're right. There is,
and that's huge. That's huge for the man. Like that's huge for what was built up on since Season 1. So,
but I mean, I think
there's a way to have to see how they accomplish it in Season 2.
Yeah.
My point is that if you don't watch Book of Boba Fett, which I don't think the Book of Boba Fett should be required reading in the middle of if you're binging Mandalorian, right?
I mean, if you've already subscribed to Disney Plus,
but I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about in 5 years from now.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
So that's my issue. Someone coming back to this, or a younger generation finding it when they get old enough to watch it.
Look, they did something at the very least experimental.
Sure.
And
I mean, don't get me wrong. While I was watching Book of Boba Fett, I was really happy that happened. Because I although I love Book of Boba Fett, I like those characters a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. I will lastly say on the Season 4 writing from Favreau, I do think Season 4 is probably going to be the last season of Mandalorian.
Yes.
And it probably won't come out till like 2025.
I'm fine with that. And
26 maybe?
Well, I don't know that
26 is a long time, but 2025.
I don't know that I have any prediction for when it comes out, but I'm fine with The Mandalorian being the last season, with Season 4 being the last season. I think it remains to be seen for me what this season is, but if this season's following the trajectory, I think it will. And if the story's following the trajectory, I think it will. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
Although this is like, I love Andor. I liked Kenobi. I liked Book of Boba Fett. They rank higher than a lot of the Star Wars movies for me. All the live action stuff ranks higher than a lot of the movies for me.
A lot of people are like that. Yeah.
As much as I'd love to see The Mandalorian go for 10 fucking seasons, if they conclude his story in a great way, and then we still see Din occasionally or the characters occasionally,
I think so.
Which is what I predict, I'm cool with that. So
I do have a wild prediction. I think
Sure.
it might come. I think it might tie into some of our questions.
Sure.
If I remember
Sure.
correctly. So we can get into that.
Okay. So, we're starting off with one that I don't know how to pronounce properly, but I'm going to read it as written, and then I'm going to say what I think it is. It's YNGR bot 5555, and I think it's Younger Bot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
So I'm going to call you Younger Bot. Thanks for joining the Discord today, guys.
Yeah.
If you have questions for us, you can throw them in the Discord. Beginning next week. So real quick, I'll talk about the schedule going forward, at least for the next few weeks. Beginning next week, our Mandalorian reviews will be on Thursdays, and our Bad Batch reviews will be on Mondays. We record both of them on the same day. So going forward, what we'll do, we will probably take 1 or 2 questions in the Mandalorian episode that pertain to Mando, or just,
preferably Mando.
Preferably pertain to Mando, or we'll just, maybe we'll throw a couple in at the end of the Thursday episode. But the majority of the questions will still end up at the end of the Bad Batch episode, which will be on Mondays.
Yeah, so if it's not read on Thursday, you'll hear it on Monday.
Since that Monday episode, the Bad Batch episode, will cover any that will also cover, general news and stuff like we've been doing. But
we're basically moving this version we're doing on Thursdays to Monday. So we can have a full length episode coverage on Mando on Thursdays starting next week.
Yeah, I think anything that's like crazy, like we want to talk about this right away and we want to get it out right away, news, anything crazy that drops, we'll put with the Mandalorian episode or as its own video separate.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's just until Bad Batch ends, and then we're not exactly sure what the schedule is going to look like.
We'll get into Star Wars Celebration.
Between that and Celebration. Yeah. So, all right. Youngerbot says, how have you seen Star Wars shape your career? They say that they are training to be a pilot, and they credit a portion of their interest in flight to Star Wars.
Very interesting.
Yeah, my career is not at all shaped by Star Wars. However,
what are your dreams?
Your
dream career.
So my dream career would be, ironically, not this podcast.
What?
Yeah,
oh, I am offended.
However, this podcast does play a role in my dream career. But my dream career would be to be doing something related to tabletop role playing games or RPGs, D&D, that space in general. And my love for that, a lot of that comes from, like I talked about earlier in the episode, my love for that stuff comes from my love from Star Wars. Because I grew up imagining what would it be like to, I grew up role playing being in Star Wars, right? Like, I've always been fascinated by not like pretending I'm Luke Skywalker, but pretending that I'm my own character within that universe.
Would you be a Disney character at Galaxy's Edge? Or like a Star Wars character at Galaxy's Edge?
Sure, I'd do that.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how deep you want to go.
No. I'm saying like I want to be a content creator, making stuff for role playing games and stuff like that. And yeah, some of that might be including making stuff for Star Wars role playing games. I love that stuff. Like that's and then just talking to people and sharing my love for Star Wars on stuff like this. But I don't know. I think that comes from aside from that, like, that's an easy answer, right? Well, I have a Star Wars podcast because I'm a Star Wars fan. Like, I feel like that's the easy answer. But my career, I work in I work
in testing.
We talked about my job earlier today.
Work in
it's
testing.
very hard to explain on the podcast. I do something very specific that I couldn't even make related to Star Wars unless, well, I guess I kind of have Anakin. I kind of like have a little bit of the Anakin tinkering.
Sure. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like that in my office.
Things. Yeah. I'm good at fixing things.
Yeah.
So for me, actually, when I came out of high school, when I was in high school,
you're kind of a pilot.
Yeah, I do work for an airline, yes, but I do not fly them nor repair them. I unload them in various ways.
Yeah, but we see people doing your job in A New Hope. They have little carts.
Yeah. I do that from time to time. Oh, dear. I will say I had two aspirations in high school that were quickly diminished. Well, not quickly, but yeah, somewhat. At one point, even though I did not have the grades nor the know-how and knowledge, I was like, wouldn't it be cool to be an aeronautical engineer? And I was not good at math. I was for like half a semester my entire high school career. And I just did not have the grades. I don't know why I thought that. But then I also had the thought of, well, what if I went to film school? And that is definitely inspired by Star Wars. We've talked about this before on the podcast. But I will say the influences, three movies, Star Wars, Top Gun, and Apollo 13 were all movies when I was younger that heavily influenced my love for just space, flight, and the fantasy world, sci-fi fantasy world of Star Wars. And they all kind of go together in weird ways, right? Or so not so weird ways, but so like when I came out of high school, I really had no idea what to do. I didn't think film school was a realistic thing, even though it was more so than I thought it was. But I ended up going initially to college to be a pilot. And I found out it really was not for me. I liked flying, but to become one and everything that comes with it, the lifestyle and all that, and not to mention the cost, which is really expensive. So, younger bot 5555, good luck to you becoming a pilot. I sincerely mean that. I hope you have a good instructor. I did not particularly have good instructors, which I think played a part in me stepping away about a year and a half into my schooling to be a pilot. I did solo. I didn't get my privates or anything like that, but I did solo. After that, it didn't really mean that much to me.
A friend of mine I grew up with, went to elementary school, grew up 5 houses down from me. He's a commercial, he's actually a private pilot now.
Okay.
But yeah, he got his commercial license and flew for a while. And now he lives in Europe and he's flying some CEO around all over the place. And it seems like he's having a great fucking time. So good on him. Wingblade, Sean Wingblade.
What up?
Elevator pitch your own idea for the next trilogy / chunk of films set past the events of the Skywalker Saga, whether they include Rey, Finn, Poe, or just a whole new cast of characters.
I love this question because
I do too.
Because I have a great idea.
I don't. So you go first.
Okay, so it's gonna hinge on the world between worlds.
Oh,
and
I'm out.
It's a one time only thing where we've introduced characters in this Disney era, Cal Kestis, Din Djarin, Grogu, right? I love these characters.
Sure.
I want to see more of them, but they're trapped in a particular timeline. Are they not?
So you want to see them pulled forward?
I want to see them pulled forward. I want somehow.
You want the Avengers.
Kind of, but here's the thing. I would love to see Cal Kestis and Rey Skywalker.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
But you want the young...
And then Grogu?
So are you shipping Cal Kestis and Rey together?
I might.
Okay.
I might have to. And then, Grogu's going to find somehow haphazardly through maybe some adventure with Ahsoka, the world between worlds, and Ahsoka is going to say, this is a point of no return. Because once you go, the world between worlds is going to become inaccessible, forever. And somehow
put it off the table for everyone.
Yeah, because I want it to be a one-shot thing only. I don't want it to be like, oh, well, we can go back and do these things. Because that's kind of how it sets up in Rebels, how Ahsoka means like, this is, you can mess up a lot of stuff here, Ezra. And so I would like, pie in the sky idea is that at the same time, or not same time, but Cal Kestis finds access to the world between worlds, jumps in there, and look, time is nebulous in Star Wars. So Grogu and Din Djarin get into the world between worlds. They find Cal Kestis at the same time wandering the world between worlds, and Grogu sees that Cal Kestis is a Jedi. And because he still has his getup from Jedi Fallen Survivor, hopefully he still lives, right? And I'm assuming he will. And then they exit the world between worlds together as a trio, and they end up in a timeline where Rey Skywalker is on her adventures. She's skeptical of them, isn't sure what to make of them, doesn't know if it's dark side magic or the dark side of the Force.
Cloning Sith magic.
And so, yeah, right? And so Rey Skywalker and Cal Kestis, they duel, right? It's an epic battle.
I'm glad you said duel. I was worried you were going to say something else.
Lightsaber fight. They lightsaber fight, and that's kind of like the beginnings of my idea. And it's then based because I want to see these characters freed from this timeline because I've fallen in love with these characters. Okay. I don't want to see them trapped or have to come to a demise because they're in a certain timeline, and it would also explain why Cal, Grogu are not around for certain events.
So it's so interesting that you this is such an interesting conundrum. Your pitch here, right? Because the conundrum is what happens to characters when they've run into another timeline, right?
Yeah.
Like presumably something has to happen to Grogu, or Grogu has to end up in a situation where he is ineligible to interact with Luke or someone else in the future. I also have an issue with the fact that Grogu is 50 years old and nonverbal. I understand their species ages differently, but Yoda says
they're 50. Come on.
But Yoda says he had been training Jedi for 800 years. So Grogu
could be trauma locked.
So ironically, I've done Mandalorian reviews, not on this podcast because we weren't around last time Mandalorian was here, but something I brought up a lot with Mandalorian in the past was that I have a feeling that Grogu is somehow impeded by trauma in the past. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't want to see the world between worlds come into play. Like I love the idea of that, but it's too jumping the shark for me for Star Wars.
I get it.
And I think you recognize that too.
It's definitely a stretch.
Okay.
I just feel like...
But I love the concept of, even outside the world between worlds, Star Wars has so many of these like demi-planes and alternate dimensions, like Mortis, and we see a bunch of others in like wherever Yoda goes in the lost episodes of Clone Wars where he sees the spirits. Like there's all these like interesting demi-planes and other dimensions. I mean, vergences like what we see in the cave on Dagobah and in the pit below Octo, those are almost the same sort of thing where there are these vergences in the Force that are their own scheme, their own separate thing. Cal Kestis encounters one on whatever the name of that planet is that I can never remember. The central planet in Fallen Order. Starts with a B. Bogano.
Bogano, right? Are we thinking that's the right one we're thinking of?
Bogano, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Cal Kestis encounters one there. There's these interesting like pseudo, demi-planes or these extraplanar realms that exist that are so interesting. I hope one day we explore more of that. For me, I want to see more. I wouldn't mind if we went back to another set of saga films after this.
Oh, for sure. That's exactly what my characters are going to be.
Well, okay. So, barring that, I'm okay if we see Rey sunset out of it. I love the character of. So this is something we didn't talk about with our Rise of Skywalker review. So I'm going to put it here.
Okay.
I love the character of Rey. I think that she could have done more. I think they could have done something a little more interesting with her in episode 9, because I think that she is in service to the plot, and the plot doesn't necessarily serve her character, which I wish it did serve her character better. Same thing with Finn. That being said, I think Finn is a lot more poorly used in episode 9. So I would like to see if we return to these characters. For once, I would like to see a set of saga films that do not focus on an untrained Jedi coming into their own. Well, I'm okay with them coming into their own. But like where we are with episode 2 and 3, Anakin and Obi-Wan are at a point where they're coming into their own. I would like to see that movie for Finn.
Oh, cool.
And whether that set of movies for Finn, and I would definitely like Poe to still be around. And I'm okay if Rey is off doing something else, if Rey has her temple, if Rey is rebuilding the Jedi Order as she is, called to do.
Yeah.
But I want to see Finn and Poe come into their own, and I want R2 with them.
Absolutely. R2.
And you could throw R2 and Aftab, and you know what? Give me some fucking Beaumont Kin. Make his character worth something.
Well, in my version, you're going to have BD1. Oh, you're enticed. I can see it in your eyes.
Give me Mr. Bones and we'll talk.
You got it.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to see, and then focus on, don't give me Sith, give me some other threat that is a dark side threat, but outside of the paradigm of Jedi and Sith. Because I think if you continue the story forward, you cannot make it a conflict between the Jedi and Sith anymore. That's been resolved. That's been ended. Palpatine is the last Sith Lord.
He said it.
He
said I'm all the Sith.
Make that a thing. Yeah. You could still have dark side Force users,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So that's my pitch. Next question is kind of similar, and I actually have a pitch for this question. Maddie Gunner asks, which genre would you like to see a Star Wars project take on next? I don't have a name for this genre, so I'm just going to give you my pitch.
Okay.
All right.
Gotta make it quick though, because that's what a pitch is.
It's set on Tatooine.
Okay.
It focuses on the mods. Between the time of Jabba's sail barge exploding and where we see them in Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
And it's them struggling with the Pikes and the other organizations on Tatooine, and it is called Twin Sons of Anarchy.
I love it. That's great.
So the way I came up with that pitch was I read the
You were
question.
watching Sons of Anarchy, and you're
No,
like,
I haven't seen. I want to rewatch it, but I saw the question. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'd love like a biker gang style, like Sons of Anarchy style show. What would I do for that? And then I thought of the pun. I'm like, that's it.
That's cool.
We're done. Or you can go. The other thing you can do with that, you can go back to KOTOR era and focus on the swoop bike gangs.
Yeah.
So, but I like the mods.
I want Ocean's 11 on Canto Bight.
Sure. Yeah, I would love a heist movie.
Want it.
Like a real, because Solo kind of is a heist movie.
Kind of.
Rogue One's got some heist elements.
I want more. I want a team like Ocean's 11.
Yeah. And I want a unique team. I want new characters.
Yeah, totally.
That'd be my second. That's the same thing. I was trying to think like, what do I want? I want more scum and villainy focus in Star Wars.
Because I know like the other answer out there is like a horror type of Star Wars, which
I don't know.
I'm not too keen on that. I wouldn't be opposed, but I know other people out there probably would.
It'd be hard to do. I think the problem with horror in Star Wars for me, it'd be hard to do and make it feel like Star Wars without making it feel like it's stepping on the toes of something else.
Maybe.
I'll tell you what you could probably do is a Vader slasher film. There's a way you can make a really small Vader gets trapped on some planet.
Just watch like episode, was it 3 of Obi-Wan? It's hard. It's gruesome. Snapping necks and crap. Oof.
Speaking of Darth Vader, Darth Mono. If you got told to pitch a story for a John Wick style film featuring Jar Jar Binks as the lead character, what would it be?
If you got told to pitch a story for a John Wick style film, I mean, I think he wants to avenge Tarpals.
No, so I think this is actually pretty easy. I think we know Jar Jar at the time of the Aftermath trilogy is a jester on Naboo.
Okay.
I think that's a cover. And I'm not. Let me premise this by saying I'm not a Darth Jar Jar supporter. I think that's the dumbest shit I've ever fucking heard. If you believe that, stop watching the podcast.
Well, no, but keep
no,
it yourself.
No. If you seriously believe that,
no, it's okay.
You don't need to watch.
Go ahead, have a fun time with it.
Yeah, if you believe it as a joke and like are having fun with it, great, wonderful. But no, so I think there is something cool you can do with that, like this idea that Jar Jar is secretly somewhat like adept at shit. So I want Jar Jar is secretly a protector. So we know Jar Jar is a jester, entertains the kids at the fountains of Naboo. I think Jar Jar is secretly a member of the Naboo Royal Guard and is protecting the Queen's daughter.
Okay.
So it's all about him behind.
A 13-year-old had a baby?
Well, the queens aren't all 13, Frank.
Sorry, 14. All right.
But right, like I think
yeah.
he's the queen's daughter just sees him as this jester, but every time she turns around, he's fighting off assassins.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, it kind of just like the John Wick style. It would be just Jar Jar avenging, or is set off, by something that he loved. But when you were talking, and you said jester, I got the idea of, what if you got a Jar Jar movie, but it was A Knight's Tale, and he plays Heath Ledger's character.
That's good.
And he's, he has to joust and or some form of like jousting.
Well, I'll tell you because you can take it under the lake and make it.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But the other way you could do it is you can make Jar Jar isn't the John Wick character. He's someone the John Wick character has to protect.
Oh,
cool, right?
Cool.
Especially because he's a representative of the Senate at some point.
Yeah.
So what if, between 2 and 3,
I'm just thinking of all these movies you can make with Jar Jar.
So,
make The Professional with Jar Jar, and he's the Natalie Portman.
Well, here's the other thing. I'm gonna Mono. I know. Mono is a big kung fu fan.
No.
Mono, I can't believe you said John Wick and not Jackie Chan.
Oh,
because
Drunken Master.
Jar Jar's the perfect Jackie Chan Drunken Master.
Hell yeah.
Surrogate. All right. I think we nailed that one.
I hope so.
Pretty well. Reefton, I've been thinking about yours all day, and I don't have a good answer for this. What in your opinion is your most controversial take? What is it about? And it could be anything, doesn't it? I think from the question, it doesn't have to be Star Wars.
Yeah. I don't know if
I don't know.
I'm not super controversial to begin with.
I don't tend to be either. I mean, my most controversial take is that Attack of the Clones is better than
Rise
and Phantom.
Oh my gosh, man, that's a. But like, you're not the only person to have those.
No,
take for sure,
but I think that's pretty controversial.
It's pretty outside the.
At least it being better than Phantom, I think is pretty controversial.
I don't know.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know if it's controversial to say that I don't particularly care for the title of The Rise of Skywalker for that movie.
Well, I don't think that's controversial, seeing as that was a big topic of discussion on our review.
So like, I'm trying to think like.
Well, I'll give you, while you think about that, I'll give you my most controversial take. I think the Beatles are not as good as people say.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
That's controversial as hell, and I'll stand by it.
I will say I actually kind of like the series finale to How I Met Your Mother.
I do too.
I know a lot of people didn't really like it. They were like, "This is too real life." I'm like, well, whatever.
I thought it was great. And look, let me tell you, not to spoil How I Met Your Mother, but they fucking broadcast that shit in the first episode. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That story goes full circle, and if you got an issue with it, keep watching the podcast, because this is not a How I Met Your Mother podcast.
I'm trying to think. Do I have another show ending that I like that other people don't?
I think Lost fans agree that Lost.
Oh yeah, ending. I don't mind the ending. The series finale for Lost.
Yeah. But I think Lost, like legitimate Lost fans, don't have a problem with it. Yeah. I think it's people that were like, I like Lost, like I'm going to watch it till the end.
I'm a pretty casual fan of Lost. I know Brandon's a big fan of Lost. I'd be curious. I don't know what his thoughts on that is.
Brandon loves it. We've talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Because here's the thing. Brandon always talks about how much he loves Lost. I've watched Lost all the way through 6 times.
Yeah.
Like, I fucking love that show.
I like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, I did too. We talked about this.
Yeah.
So does Kevin.
Yeah. So, I mean, controversial to other people, not us.
Yeah, just not us. Well, there's a reason we do a podcast.
There is a reason why we're friends, yes.
We disagree on a lot of stuff on the podcast, but we agree on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Booze, who I know is Johnny Booze.
I just know him as Booze.
Did Ben pull off what Palpatine wanted to do at the end of Rise? And did he transferred his life to Rey, but didn't possess her like Sheev would have? Or did he just... Oh, okay, so I'm going to retranslate this. I understand what he's saying.
Okay.
He's asking if Ben implanted part of his spirit into Rey.
Oh.
When he healed her. Or when she healed him. He healed her.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, about my answer?
Yeah.
No. He just transferred his life force essence into Rey. It's a life for a life.
You know what? I like this interpretation, and I like it.
I like that idea.
I like it as an explanation to why we don't see him as a ghost at the end. Even though I know the actual explanation is, now that we know what forced ghosts are and how they're made, he wasn't ready to become one. Doesn't mean he won't become one later.
Because Qui-Gon does.
Qui-Gon does later.
Takes some time. Yeah.
But I like that idea that because they're a dyad, he was able to put at least part of himself into Rey. So he's always with her. He's always, and I'm not going to, whether you're a Reylo or just, whatever, I like them as a pair, platonically. Not that there isn't also a romantic element there, but I'm speaking from more of the platonic idea. It's interesting them being a dyad, bringing them together in that way. I like that, John. My answer is no, I don't think that's what happened, but I like that, and
that's a cool idea.
Gonna keep that as a little bit of my own headcanon there, because that's really cool.
I mean, who knows this? Who knows what stories they may tell in the future with Rey, and they may.
Yeah,
someone might, an author or a comic or maybe a movie, I don't know, might be like, yeah, Rey might feel a sense of Ben with her, and good Lord, the Reylos will.
Well, because they did
go through the screen.
They did have that bond, like being able to communicate through.
Yeah, space, even though it was manufactured for them.
Yeah, but once Snoke is gone, it's No. That's
what I'm saying. Like, even though it was like, I guess the other question would be, would their connection have happened without Snoke?
Yeah, I think he just made it stronger.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he took what existed there and amplified it.
Gotcha.
Right.
Or accelerated
the process.
Yeah, okay.
Or at least forced. Maybe they were already connected. I mean, they definitely were already connected in the way that's, otherwise you wouldn't call them a dyad. You can't force a dyad like that. Not that we know what a dyad is prior to this movie.
Yeah.
But like the way it's set up, you can't force that to happen. That's a destiny thing or a will of the force thing.
Yeah.
So if anything, he might have forced them to have those interactions, but their connection was already there. And Snoke even calls attention to that in Force Awakens. He said, darkness rises and the light to meet it. That's exactly what they are. They're a paired.
Interesting how the Force would work that way.
I mean, balance.
Exactly.
It's Snoke even says it in I forget the name of the movie, but he says, perfectly balanced as all things should be.
yeah. And I think that's just cousin Thanos.
Yeah, that's just cousin Thanos. My bad. All right, Erden 5. Would it have been better if Snoke was the villain of Rise of Skywalker rather than Palpatine being the villain? It's hard for me to answer that because I think that's a totally different movie. I'm okay with Palpatine as the villain. I just think it was set up and hinted at poorly, and I think the issue is that there was no plan. I'm okay with either version of Snoke or Palpatine being the villain. I just wish there was a cohesive plan for either, and there isn't.
I will say no. I'm glad Snoke wasn't the villain for Rise of Skywalker. If anything, it should have been Kylo. If it's not going to be Palpatine, then it should be Kylo.
Sure, I agree with that.
That's where I would go with that. Because I do like that Kylo kills Snoke in The Last Jedi. That sets up such an interesting character development for Kylo and his further plunge into the dark side, that in The Rise of Skywalker, if he is the villain, just think of like how insanely powerful he would be diving deeper and deeper into the dark side, and it would, I think it would have been really interesting to see that version of Kylo. You kind of see it a little bit in Rise, but he's so concentrated on at first in the beginning of the movie, he's so concentrated on taking out Palpatine because he's a threat to his power.
He doesn't really get to be the villain.
Yeah, he never really does.
He gets to be a foil or an antagonist.
He is a villain, but not like the villain.
I don't even think he's a villain. I think he's the foil or the antagonist.
Yeah, I guess.
A catalyst for the plot more than anything. I agree. I think that's my preferred version of the movie, or the preferred version of the potential movie that could have happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that Kylo got to be actually Supreme Leader Kylo. Whether or not he's redeemed in the end, whatever. However, I wish we would have got a little more about Snoke in whatever version we got. I wish we would have got a little bit more about, Snoke's referred to in Force Awakens as if Leia, not just is familiar with him, but knows him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they had some form of interaction.
Like there's a history there.
Yeah, and we never got.
It's like that weird older guy that came around the neighborhood. And it's
like he earned their trust, and
he got my kid hooked on drugs. I know who Snoke is.
Yeah. Nep has a cool question.
Okay.
But you don't have an answer for this.
Okay.
Unless you thought about it.
No.
Okay. So I have an answer for Nep.
Well, we'll say the question first.
This is a different one for you all. Which episode of Star Wars Visions was your favorite and why? So you don't have an answer.
No, so what I will say, Nep, is that I am not refreshed enough to give you an honest, truthful answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that refresh my memory on the episodes, and then I'm going to reply to your comment in the Discord.
I have a better thought. Why don't we tack it onto another episode? Because my answer to this is kind of similar.
Oh, okay.
So I only watched about half.
We'll do both.
I only watched about half of Visions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't finish Visions.
Oh, okay.
I forget. There were a couple episodes that I was like, this just isn't for me. But a few episodes, like my favorite episode is the Jabba rock band episode.
Oh, yeah. I think
where that rock band plays at the Boonta Eve Classic.
I do know that I initially enjoyed the first episode.
The first episode is the other one that I love.
Yeah, and I do really like that one a lot. I think I like that style of animation, so it really works for me. But there were other great episodes in that series that I do want to go back and just refresh my memory, because maybe there was another one that sticks out to me that I really like. But like right off the bat, is that first one. What is it called?
Because you're more of an anime fan than I am.
I
don't
I like more mainstream anime, not like
but
hardcore,
like your roommates and stuff like anime, so you're exposed to it a lot more.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't watch any anime. My fiance doesn't watch any anime, so like I'm not as actively exposed to it. Like the most anime thing I fucking watch is fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. Like, sorry, dude. Like I don't know it. Or Avatar, but a lot of people say Avatar's not anime because it's American. I'm like, I don't know. The Japanese consider it anime, so I guess it's anime. But anyways, I want to give you another answer after I've put in the time to rewatch the series. Okay. So, Nep, remember to ask that question again, because we want to give you better answers than that.
Yeah, we give you a half-ass answer. I want to give a better one. Yeah.
But for now, my answer is that the Jabba rock band episode, it's too much fun for me to not just love it. It reminds me of like Scott Pilgrim animated.
Oh yeah, okay.
So
I got you there. Okay. Yeah.
And then our last question,
got in just under the wire.
Just under the wire, man. Is from Prodigal Knight 777. Hopefully you guys aren't too late. Maybe you guys are taping already. What is your favorite Star Wars quote?
Ooh. You just had to throw that one in there, because that's like, you know how many great quotes are in Star Wars that I absolutely love? But what I will say is and this is kind of a cop-out answer, because I just love the whole interaction between Han and Leia on Hoth in the hallway. Like, I mean, even like, well, geez. Like, even in A New Hope, and it's like, we have no time to discuss this in a committee. I am not a committee. Like, man, it is so good.
Well, that line always, to me, harkens, or I guess the aggressive negotiations line, to me, always harkens back to that line.
I can see that, yeah.
For some reason. You had another good one. That I'm with you.
Oh, it's just another Han quote.
My favorite, because this is probably my most quoted Star Wars line.
This one goes there.
This one goes there. That one goes here.
Right? I guess a lot of them revolve around Han.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not to say I don't love a lot of stuff that Yoda says. I just find that more meditation-esque and more thought-provoking.
It's a little too fortune cookie for me sometimes.
Sometimes, sure, but I appreciate like the lesson within some of those Yoda proverbs, if you will. But the fun ones for me come from Han, obviously.
As I'm getting older, I probably gravitate more towards. Look, I deal with anxiety issues and whatever. I slowly am gravitating more towards 3PO quotes. But my favorite quote from Star Wars, or at least the one that I think is most applicable to my life, is "I'm just a simple man trying to make his way through the galaxy." I think that's the most
applicable to you.
Applicable to me.
Sure.
Mine
would be I'm a Jedi like my father before
right.
me. That's when that applies to me the most.
So the line in Mandalorian is I'm a simple man trying to make my way through the galaxy like my father before me. Is the line I believe, or it's hold on, I have it written down. Like my father before me.
That's the line.
That's what he says to. That's what Boba.
I know he
says
says that. I know the father parts of
that's what Boba says to Din.
Oh damn. Okay. Very cool.
So
very cool. I'm going to rewatch Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2
before.
Dude, it's not a lot.
No,
it's not a lot, especially when you have a lot of free time. I don't, but I do.
Yeah,
and it's so easy to binge. Like I will run through 6 episodes like that, and I'll be like, "Well, I got 2 more to go. Might as well just finish those." And it's not going to take me 16 episodes in the next 7 days. I mean, 6 days. It's not. I can squeeze in the time, and I'll stay up late, and I'll lose some sleep because I love Mandalorian. Which, by the way, next week, Thursday, you better come back here because we're talking all about Mandalorian. The whole crew, myself, Sean right here, Brandon, and Kevin, we're going to be breaking down that season premiere. Season 3 of The Mandalorian is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to the... what happened?
Oh, I was going to say, I have a quick plug before we get into our show plugs.
Oh, yeah.
This airs Thursday.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night, Friday night at 6 Pacific, I'll be on POV, A Certain Point of View. We're doing a couples night or a...
what is it, the newlywed
game.
Yeah.
It'll be myself and my fiancée Jill, and Alex Damon and Molly Damon from Star Wars Explained, Jake Berlin and his wife, and we're going to get drunk and... answer questions. So find my Twitter, just Suit Up Sully, or I'll post it in Discord.
Flaunting your love across the internet. Wow. Just the gall.
I was trying to just give our fans another way to interact live with our, whatever.
Sure.
Our community.
But you're just like, hey, look at all of us. We're in love. And
well, not Brian. Brian will be there.
Oh, really? That poor son of a bitch.
Brian will be there alone. Asking us some questions.
He's running the show, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well,
there you go.
We wanted to single him out.
I hope you're paying him well.
Jake might be.
Yeah.
Paying a little bit, but yeah. Other than that, next Thursday, Monday, our review of Rise of Skywalker.
Tune in for that. Like I said at the top of the show,
it's
Brandon
fucking wild.
Is on another level, guys.
You
don't even know.
Fucking
you don't
wild.
Even know. And I am not overhyping this. This is not hyperbole.
There's like 4 times Frank and I look at each other like, what? Who is this guy?
It is insane. I mean, the man was on a one-way track. What's that one Meatloaf?
He took the midnight train going
What's that Meatloaf
anywhere.
line? Good pal of mine, Chris Clark, said it one time on the show when I ran out. He said he's on a one-way track that could not stop or something. Oh, what is that line? Hold on, I gotta look it up before. One-way train track.
Anyways, while he's doing that, guys, go ahead and find our podcast feed. Leave us a review. Leave us some comments here. Give us a like. Share this with your best friend from elementary school who you haven't talked to in like 6 years. Send this to your dad. We love dads. Dads love us. I'm stalling for time. Tune in next week for Mandalorian. Tune in this Monday for this quote from Frank.
The quote is, Brandon was on a runaway train on a broken track. He's a ticker on a bomb. He can't turn back.
I don't know what song that is. I don't know Meatloaf.
It's from Alive, the Meatloaf song Alive.
Hey, what's your if you had I got a quick question for you. Chris Clark's favorite Star Wars character is Jabba the Hutt. Who would you cast Meatloaf as in Star Wars?
A new character.
A new character you'd give
called
him his own?
but his name would be Beef Ravioli.
It would be I would call him the traditional Life Day dish is a tip yip.
Tip yip, that's what it is, yeah.
So I would call him Tip Yip Tony.
Tip yip.
And he is a gangster on Nar Shaddaa. And no. He is the rivals of the Twin Sons of Anarchy. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Scoundrel. I like the sound of that.